KoitCast. Today's guest is a mind reader and mentalist from Crystal Lake, Illinois in the US. He solved the Richardson Corn Maze Blindfolded, hacked the Pentagon using only his mind, appeared on TV and coast-to-coast AM radio, and has been performing his own show, Mystic, in the Dole Mansion for nearly a decade. A big Koit welcome to Joe Diamond. Hi Joe, welcome to KoitCast.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this. I'm excited.
Me too, my friend. You come with such high recommendation from Varla, so no pressure at all.
None. Exactly. Yeah, she. So I was a big fan of hers for a long time, and then about a year ago, I had a small little public, not really public radio, but AM station in the U.S. It was at like 8 o'clock on Sundays, and that was back in 2014. So only competing with Game of Thrones, you know. But the upside is I got to just look at my bookshelf, and I had an excuse to email all of them and ask if they wanted to chat. And Varla was one of the very first, and we hit it off, became almost instant friends. It was like in Step Brothers. Did we just become best friends? Oh my God. So yeah, we text and talk all the time now.
I love that. I like it when that happens as well, because obviously as part of this podcast scenario for me, I've had to contact loads of people in the paranormal sphere that I've listened to and, you know, read their work essentially across the years. And then approaching them is also kind of weird, but great when they respond.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. Joe, let's jump in and talk about yourself. So in your own words, I suppose, who are you, where are you from? Anything you want to add or supply?
So my name is Joe Diamond. I'm from the Midwest area in America. I literally live right on the Wisconsin-Illinois border, so right smack dab in the middle of the chaos. We'll just leave it at that. Some call me a mind reader. Some call me a mentalist, psychic entertainer. The joke I say to open all my shows is I'm not a medium. I'm a large, because it lets them know what my sense of humor is. It also points out that, because so many people, when they hear the term like psychic or even mentalist or magician, there's so much baggage with each of those words, both positive and negative, you know, for a variety of reasons. So if I'm really cornered, I usually go with, for a title, I usually go with like mind reader or lately mystic, because some people just need that box. But I kind of like that I've developed a niche here in the U.S. and an audience that just kind of knows, if you go see a Joe Diamond show, it's going to be likely in a historic, spooky location. There'll be mind reading. There'll be some mystical elements, maybe some spooky ghost elements. So I've done shows everywhere from historic jail cells, historic mansions, historic theaters. I was born in Woodstock, Illinois, where they filmed the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray.
Oh, cool.
And that building he jumps out of, in the movie they say it's a hotel, but it's actually a theater. It's the first theater that Orson Welles ever performed in. So I've done a number of solo sold-out shows there for Halloween over the last few years, as well as throughout the rest of the year. And so even when I do like a bigger stage show, that space is still fairly intimate. It's 400 seats, but and because it's, you know, of the way it's set up, and it's an old opera house, so it still feels very intimate. I guess for you across the pond, the best way to kind of elevator pitch myself is that I'm kind of like a Midwest blue collar Darren Brown. But played by a James Corden clone. So that's kind of the best. That's kind of the best way. Like if James Corden had to play John Constantine and do a Darren Brown show, that's kind of the Venn diagram that I live in.
What a lovely melting pot.
Yes, and why I love doing shows like yours, because people understand that for the most part.
Very much so.
Some Midwesterners go, Constantine, wasn't that Keanu Reeves movie? They kind of know, but yeah.
We
So
know,
yeah, that's
especially comic book
yes,
nerds know.
yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Of course, of course. And
Indeed.
yeah, so I designed everything from intimate shows that have seen it as little as 13 people at a time. I've done ghost tours. Like I've said, I've done bigger stage shows. I do my fair share of like private and corporate work where I keep it very middle of the road and just, keep it to mind reading and don't really, I mean, I think most people in 2025 understand if they hire a mind reader, they're for their corporate event, they're not going to be summoning any demonic entities
Not that
into
they
the
know
local
of.
Hyatt. Not that they know of, exactly. Exactly. But I mean, yeah, so like in those situations, I keep it very like I don't even want to say traditional, but like it like in my corporate shows, I literally only read minds for an hour, but in my more uh environment set shows where people are coming into a location or stepping into my world, basically, I start with the mind reading, but then move on to hopefully stranger things as we go.
And Stranger Things is where I like to jump in. Viola
Mm-hmm.
described you, as far as I remember, as a paranormal magician. Does that
Yeah.
sound right to you?
Yeah, that was like my first attempt at branding, like again, over 10 years ago when Varla and I first met. I mean, not unfortunately. The guy is really good, but he's doing something completely different than me. Someone else has that .com and is using that branding and everything now. So just out of professional courtesy, I mean, I had stopped using it by the time he started. So like there's no like wizard battle going on or anything like
Yeah,
that.
sure, sure.
But yeah, but so if you had to pick like again, it was kind of meant to be the same but opposite of Darren Brown, how he went by psychological illusionist. Like here in the US, no one would understand, especially in the Midwest, like kind of even illusionist people aren't totally sure what that is. So paranormal magician, the paranormal activity movies had become popular, and at the beginning of 2008 to 2010, that area, it was a lot of that stuff was starting to have kind of a resurgence. So uh but yeah, but I think and I like the word paranormal too, versus a word like supernatural, because paranormal just means outside of the normal,
Yes.
versus supernatural where it's like this is something outside of the natural. This is paranormal, outside of the normal can, it encompasses a lot of different things. Like I explained in one of my shows, that word encompasses everything from telepathy to weird sideshow stunts, and then I'll hammer a nail in my nose and I'll say it's not paranormal, but it's also not normal.
That's
And
definitely not normal, no.
so a lot of different things. I have friends who are in sideshow, friends who are in magic, friends who are in comedy, friends who are in the psychic realm, the entertainment realm, the mystical realm, like Varla, and I try to pull from all those uh influences, and try to make something that is, if not completely and utterly unique, at mostly just as close to a representative of what I feel the culture is lacking right now, which I think is mystery. Mystery is not the same as burying your head in the sand. It's not the same as ignorance. It's not the same as wanting to know and not being able to figure it out. I think mystery is important for a variety of reasons, which is, most of which, I think people need to remember is that we don't know everything. There are
I
big,
do.
profound Oh, you do? Okay, good. We found you. We found you. Perfect.
Omnipotent.
Yes. I want to, if I ever have a kid, I do want to name them everything. So that way people who know them can say, I know everything. So yeah. And they'll be everything to me.
Oh, that
Exactly.
is sweet.
So
Right, so Joe, let's jump into the meat and potatoes then. I'm thinking, how does the paranormal then play into your act? I.e., are you drawing on spirits? What are you drawing on into yourself to make your act unique?
Sure, sure. Great question, by the way. I'm very careful. First off, let me just make one quick distinction before we go into this.
Sure.
I do often, like again, I've done ghost tours. I've done some very, very light, casual paranormal research and historical research on different venues. I have done things like, palmistry and tarot and all that stuff. I do have a very, for lack of a better term, personal spirituality that I do have, as much as a semi-agnostic Baptist school graduate can have. So we'll leave it at that. So of course, some of that is going to blend into my artistic work. That said, in my artistic work, again, I want that mystery. I want believers to question, and I want skeptics to question. Like, I don't want. I like blending a lot of different things. So that show I was talking about, Paranormal, I would start with a sideshow stunt of hammering a nail in my nose, and I loved doing that because that is not a trick. There is a technique to it, but like the nail doesn't collapse. It's a real nail. The person can keep it. I have them initial it up front and everything. A sword swallower, a friend of mine, taught me that. Sword swallowing is another good example for this, where it is something that's 100% real, but people always think there's a deception to it. They think the sword collapses. They think, the nail collapses. They think maybe you've had some surgery or something. There is a technique to it. And sometimes that technique is theatrically enhanced. For example, I don't have a nail with me, otherwise I'd do it, but there's clips of me doing it online. If anyone wants to see something really gross and fun, don't try this at home.
How long is the nail, by the way?
About 4 inches, and it sticks out about that much. So I could just take it and put it in and take it out, much like a sword swallower would do with a sword.
Sure.
But the sword swallower taught to me, said, always hold it and tap it in with a hammer. You're just slowly putting it in and just tapping the end with the hammer. But tapping it makes it feel more visceral. And the other reason I like starting with it is because, in effect, it is a test of telepathy. When people go, it's like sympathetic magic, because they don't feel like I'm doing it to myself. They feel like it's being done to them. So
yes.
All without doing any, trick, illusion, smoke, mirrors, deception, any of it. But again, that's because, of the theatrical enhancement of the hammer. And from there, I'll go into more like, some people would call it mentalism. Some people would call it, mental magic. There's actually, even in like inner circles, there's an argument over what is mentalism, what is magic, what is mystery energy. There's all that, and I don't get caught up on any of that. I just try to connect with people as much as possible. Mind reading usually is, like, for me, the quickest, like, way in, and then from there, I try to take the skills that we've done and use it to explore something, whether it's ghosts, whether it's mesmerism. I don't do any mediumship. I don't talk to anyone's dead relative. I don't even have someone think of like the name of a dead relative and then, guess it, because I feel like that's without going too much into this, because I have a huge amount of respect for Darren Brown. I'll probably invoke him a couple times for this because it's a good comparison, I think, and he's been such an inspiration. That said, even when he was doing something where in his shows where he was pretending to do mediumship, but with people's like actual information about their dead relatives, I still felt uneasy about that personally. I feel like I don't want to use the memory, no matter what my or your spiritual feelings, beliefs, any of that are. I don't want to use your tragedy as entertainment fodder for my show. I'd much rather try to invoke those feelings in a more, for lack of a better term, ethical and safe way. I don't want to, it'd be very easy for me to like do some Hollywood special effects, make my eyes bleed, or seemingly cut off my arm and stuff. And there's a time and a place for that stuff, of course. I love that kind of stuff. But that's not what I'm going for. I'm going for like that kind of Twilight Zone. Where has reality ended, and where is it?
You're
Where's
blending the
fantasy
lines
and
or
story?
blurring the lines, aren't
Yes,
you? Yeah, yeah.
yes, exactly. And a lot of performers again, like Darren, has done that, of course. But I definitely am more. I definitely believe in more mystical phenomena than he does, of course, and I incorporate that into my work. And I have had things that even I can't explain. Even and again, even the most, I don't care how diehard skeptic you are, when you go into a historic mansion and you're in the Crystal Ballroom or you're in a historic theater, you can feel the history of a place like that. You can feel the energy. And I like invoking that feeling and making it rather than trying to make it a puzzle that everyone has to be solved, make it more of an immersive experience.
Well, it definitely will be an immersive experience, and that is the key phrase
Mm-hmm.
there. In a way, you've landed on your feet at the mansion that you do most of your shows at,
Mm-hmm.
because that is part of the active, in essence, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
Exactly.
yeah, I'll be like, I'll admit, this is not a trick, this is not a gag. They've tried to fix this. There have been times I'll be reading someone's mind. If you go on my Instagram at Joe Diamond Live, you'll see a lot of videos and photos of this ballroom. And there'll be times where I'll be reading someone's mind, picking up on something, and the lights on the chandelier will just flicker. They've checked, there's no they've checked the wiring, they've tried to fix it. It's no one's upstairs walking around to jostle anything. It just happens. Now, is that just the house settling and it coincidentally happens at a really opportune, spooky time more often than not? Sure. But I also like to point out, a lot of skeptics like to say, oh, that's just a coincidence. And I like to point out that when you really think about it, that's more disturbing. The idea that no one or nothing was pulling the strings to make these connections or synchronicities happen is ultimately more mysterious. So I don't think it's a matter of, belief or skepticism. I think it is more of, looking at, admitting that there is a mystery in the first place. And, as long as we can both agree, like, yeah, we're both attacking this mystery. I'm coming at it more skeptically. I actually have a lot of friends who are in a similar relationship like me. Like I'm the more like mystical, intuitive one, and my wife, she's the super analytical one, and like she's a history science double major. But we both love watching Sherlock Holmes mysteries. We both love murder mysteries, but we come at it from completely
From
different
different
angles.
angles. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Another friend of mine who does mediumship and tarot reading. Her husband to be is very skeptical and likes to think things through and try things out and test theories, and but like they get along great. And I think that's happening more and more. I think the age of you know people on people on talk shows, sort of like the old school James Randi, Uri Geller debates. I think everyone is just kind of like, for the most part, like getting into a headspace where they can have these discussions more. And at least here in the US, the fact that more and more people like are using tarot cards, more and more people are like, that was the thing, when I was starting out, if I took out tarot cards, people would be freaked out. But now I take them out, they go, oh, that's pretty, I have a deck that's like this, and they will take a tarot deck out of their purse. Like that is just, that's of course, a very narrow example, but I think a lot of people are at the very least open to exploring and having conversations about lots of different points of view. And I think that's why even my shows, what's really funny is I can always tell, like, not 9 times out of 10, the guys in the audience are husbands that have been dragged by their wives. But like, I also know that they're expecting like me to say very vague things or do a cheesy magic trick or say something that is uh not that impressive or something. And so when I come out basically calling that, and I'm also having fun with them at the same time. I'm not being, a dick, and I'm not trying to prove I know something that they don't, and we're having fun. They're very often the ones who are like posting on social media, writing the reviews on TripAdvisor, and it always starts the same way. I'm a skeptic, but this was so much fun. This was amazing.
Well, because they've had the biggest change, haven't they? That's it.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that's great. I mean, just coming from a theatrical background, like that's great drama. That's great, like, conflict. And I think that's the other thing too. I'm not afraid. I don't want to challenge people to be like, oh, you can't figure this out, or I know more than you. But I like there to be some element of conflict in my shows. One of the ways I do this is I'll say who's more skeptical when it comes to mind reading. Okay, so you probably don't believe it's possible for you to know someone else's thoughts without them speaking out loud, right? Without having met that person, and especially if they thought of those thoughts in a completely different time and place, right? Here's the thing, you have done that because you've read a book. So I'm not saying, I used to say, so you've never read a book. And it took them a little longer to realize what I was talking about. But when I then just kind of recontextualized it for them, and then the final line is I say, you see, when you read a book, you're reading the author's thoughts. They conceived those thoughts at a completely different time, and you've likely never met the author. See, anything's possible as long as you lower your expectations enough. I would have been a horrible guidance counselor. And like that just lets them know, like, oh yeah, this is meant to be fun. This is meant to be like, part of the fun of it is how specific can I get? How impressive and accurate can it be? Of course. But at the same time, I've had everything be wrong in the show. I've gotten, everything from names people are thinking of wrong to words to simple things that should be simple, like, a card in a deck of cards. But for me, as long as we're having fun, it doesn't really matter. Theoretically, I wouldn't want this to happen for the entire show, but in theory, I'd be very okay if I got very little in a show right, but we had a blast, then have everything in the show me be right. And I've done this show for sure, where I am right on just about everything, but the audience doesn't care, doesn't feel connected, or whatever reason.
Yeah, you want that rapport. Obviously, that's the human connection side of things. Now,
of course,
obviously, I want to ask you some questions on what you do, but obviously, I know you don't want to give away the secrets of what you want to do.
Sure. Well, there are some, like, it is a little more different than theatrical or traditional theatrical magic, where secrets are more on its sleeve. There are more, again, for the biggest thing for me is I like having people not know, like, just for example, like, did I just get lucky? Were we at the one show where he got really, really lucky, or does that happen every time? Little things like that. So I have I try not to spoil the content of like my shows, but I'm very open talking about everything from the psychology to the intuition to, even the more theatrical things like writing scripts and picking out different, material for different venues and such. So let's start pretty much an open book. So yeah.
Okay, well, here I go then. I'll ask, and then if you can't or don't, they just say nah, and then we'll move on, and it'll be as simple as that. And no offense will be taken my side, by the way. So
that's fair.
I mean, I watched a fair few of your videos, like writing questions for our conversation. Now, I pretty much watched everything on your website. Mm-hmm. Now,
thank you.
It's how you get the names of people. Or that one last when you got her dad's name, Duke, and that was a nickname. That wasn't even his real name.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like unbelievable magic, because how the shit did you get
that? Sure.
Now, you don't have to give me how you physically did it, but give me some measure of track on how you might get
so there. Yeah, of course. Well, and like that's the other thing that's weird about parapsychology, and also just more traditional magic tricks too. It's like, is making a coin disappear more impressive than bending a spoon? Is getting like and with mind reading, it's almost like the raw technique of getting like a name of someone is almost exactly the same as getting like a random word that someone's thinking of. Like the raw technique will be almost exactly the same. Uh, but they tell very different stories. So one of the things I'll do, just for example, like I'll have someone get a book, open a book, pick a word, and I'll try to guess the word. I'm going to use very similar techniques to get close to or know the word. However, I can use those same techniques with a name or a person. And if I talk more about the kind of person they are and have them pretend to call the person on an imaginary phone,
Yeah.
theatrically, it feels completely different and hopefully more impressive, even if, and again, it doesn't even matter if it's a nickname or, a name like, Joe or John. If the person isn't working with me, I'm not going to get it. If the person could think of the name, someone could think of a number from 1 to 10, but if they're thinking 7, 9, 6, 3, 2, like I'm not going to get it. If they're purposely trying to screw me up, it's of course not going to work. It's a conversation. So of course there's that. Also, the other aspect of it too is there are a lot of people who will do things like and of course some unethical mediums, and especially ones on TV, have been busted, like with researching people online before shows, or secret electronics and stuff. I can honestly say I don't do any of that. I can walk out on stage, know nothing about anyone, genuinely, when we start, and pull out things, everything from star signs to names and birthdays and all that, without having any access to their social media before, during, or after. I even joke with people, having them check. Like, I'm wearing headphones now, of course, since we're on Zoom. But I'll have people in shows like check, do I have any headphones in that kind of thing. And so the harder thing is actually to show those aren't the things I'm doing, and to make things resonate, and also make because the other funny thing too is, because people say, like, well, you only read one person's mind at a time, what about the rest of the audience? Well, the rest of the audience is empathizing with me because they don't know the name either. Maybe some people who know this person have some guesses as to who she's thinking of, but they don't even know who she's decided on. So there's a lot of empathy going on naturally throughout the room for that. And yeah, and there's there of course is some psychology. That said, I've made a lot of just completely intuitive leaps, and the biggest secret about intuition isn't a secret. It's to go with your gut early. Like, so many, like, go with your first instinct. There's so many stories. Or how many times have you said or heard someone, during a game show or something, like, oh, I should have gone with my first gut. Oh, I should have gone. Like, so half the battle is just not doing that. Like, if you just don't do that, you're halfway there, because you're no worse off than if you did try that. If it is still wrong, you're still in the same place you were if you didn't say it. At least in my case with my show, I do tend to, and I'll even say, like, what if I do get something wrong? I'll try to downplay it, but there are times where people go, like, you are thinking of a red card, and they go, nope, like, I can't even be close. It's a simple binary, and just nope. And I just look at the audience and I go, well, this is why mind reading is an art form and not a science. And move on, And what's funny is people tend to forget the stuff you get wrong, and
remember the right moments.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So primarily, for me to summarize from my own mind before we then go into the next level of questioning, there's a sort of like checklist, if you will, in your mind of stuff that you do.
Sure.
That gets you to whittles down to a certain location. And then intuition plays a big part on top of that?
Uh,
Or does
if
it
we're
just
talking
lead
from a
into it?
if we're talking from a purely logical standpoint, I'd say yes. That said, again, so much of it is just, it is more about empathy than telepathy sometimes. So it is just, going with what feels natural to you at the time. Same way when like you're reading tarot cards and just trying to find the narrative connection between those things. And yeah, so the other thing I'll do a lot is something called psychometry. And this is
From objects, yeah?
yeah, where you hold objects. So I will um have people, if you watch the videos, you'll notice I'm having them hold out their hands and I'm placing my hand on
Yeah,
theirs.
you're doing that, aren't you? Yeah.
Or I'm holding, there are times, there's a whole part of my show where I hold on to objects and I don't know who in the room they belong to, and I try and pick up on some specific information or vibes from it, and give it back to the correct person. And like I like giving the reading for that one person, but then giving it back to the right person. That's sort of like the cherry, the bow on top for everyone else who's been watching. And also those who put in objects, they're like, oh, is he going to come to me next? So there's a little bit of that.
Hmm.
But there is, so almost all, in fact, when I started doing Zoom shows, I had to rely almost entirely on intuition and psychology because I can't hold objects. I did for a while have people hold objects up to the screen and hold my hands up like this, and I got pretty good with that, but luckily in-person events came back and we were able to do more of that type stuff. But yeah, but I've had people come up to me, and this is a perfect example too. I've had people come up to me after shows, just hand me an object and ask, what vibes do you get? I do have, like, part of the secret to that is I just hold on to the object and I just talk about what comes to me naturally without filtering and just going with it. So there are times, yes, that I'm using, again, psychological and theatrical techniques to make it, like, again, for example, in the book, I say to the person, pick a long, challenging words. And that's, so A, it sounds more impressive, but also if I do all this and they're just thinking of it's not going to be as
Yeah.
cool, and again, there are other, like, mental and psychological ploys you can use. Like if someone is skeptical, if you hand that person a deck of cards, 9 times out of 10, if they're like saying they're a skeptic, they're a skeptic. And in your head, you're going, you're not a skeptic, you're a dick. Hand them the deck, and 9 times out of 10, that person will take out the Joker because they think,
Oh, because they're being dick, yeah.
I'm gonna mess with him. So trying to be unpredictable actually makes them predictable. Now, again, that's a very specific and narrow uh, uh, technique, but using that kind of thinking in real time with the people, because that's the other thing. I don't know how people are going to react. They're also in front of a group of sometimes strangers, even only 30 people. It's like, people's number one fear is public speaking, and now they're standing next to this guy who says he's going to tell them what name they're thinking of. Like, what else is he going to tell us, or what else does he pick up on? So I do my best to take care of that person as well. And of course, when they do react, respond, freak out, all that stuff, but I don't want to do it at the expense of them. Like, if you watch those videos, I hope it is clear from everyone else's intuition and your own telepathy. You can tell that person was happy to have done the experience, even if they are like walking away or like, oh my God, like they are clearly like, this is a powerful moment for them. And they're not, I'm not going to be the subject of their next therapy session.
Or they're not building voodoo dolls of you, yeah.
Not yet.
No.
Maybe a few X's, but no audience members yet.
Quality. So I was trying to think, right, where you personally draw the line between your skills, which is obviously going to be things like body language, all the other things that
Sure.
play into reading
Yeah.
people, essentially. And I
Sure.
get that. There is technique. I understand it. There's skill and technique. I just wonder if you're playing down any powerful side of you that we would say is paranormal, that you're not purposely playing down, but you have a stronger gift than you may give credit for. I wonder if that's there.
Um,
Like
there's
psychometry
no
isn't
way
something
that
everyone can do, is it? Let's start with
sure,
that.
sure. That I mean, I'm yeah, it's an interesting place I'm in because like there's no way I can't agree with you without sounding a little bit conceited. But
I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. I mean, let me make this very clear. Yes, I work very hard on my craft. I work very hard on the shows. That said, I do believe I do have certain gifts, but I do believe everyone has certain gifts. Our gifts may not be the same. I'm just trying to accentuate mine, and one of those gifts, ironically, and this is how I'm going to turn it around, but it's also true, is the shows really aren't about me. They are about the people, the audience going through these things. So the way I think about, okay, so let's just look at the show I do at the Maxwell Mansion, which is going to run uh, Tuesdays this summer and then Fridays this October. Actually, the October show will be a completely different show for Halloween. Different material. So there will be, because people, when they come back, they want to see surprise. And even with when they see the same mind ring, people they don't know how people are going to react. There's always an aspect of it that is different every time.
Sure.
But I have learned to have different material for different environments, times of the year, that kind of thing. So anyway, uh, when I think about okay, the 30 people are all gathering in a historic mansion in oh by the way also Lake Geneva is where Gary Gygax, who created Dungeons and Dragons, is from as well. I believe he's buried there as well, and there's also legend of a sea monster or a sea serpent of some kind in the lake as well. So it has its own kind of paranormal, and the Maxwell Mansion has its own haunted legends and such as well. We can get into that later.
Yes, that was my next
but
question, so I'll
but
let you finish
well,
this and then we'll go into it.
I know. See? Uh, that's the other thing. Sometimes just take credit for shit, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and but like when I think about it from the audience member's standpoint, if I were writing a script for the Twilight Zone, you wouldn't you would go in with this group of people or this one or two people going like, wow, we're going into this old house, like, yeah, there's only 30 people, and then they'd be in there, and then the psychic, the mentalist, the mystic, whoever comes in, and the weird stuff happens, and then those people leave the show changed or they go through this experience. It really wouldn't be from the performer's perspective. I mean, you could write it that way, of course,
Mm.
but that's not like the way I think about it is I want to give people their own Twilight Zone experience. I'm like going to Disney and going on the Tower of Terror, the Twilight Zone ride there at Hollywood Studios is like that was a huge like, oh my god, like that's what they do with a budget. For me it's like, okay, this is what I do with a house that already exists and my skill set that already exists and so on. That said, yes, I have developed a skill, talent, however you want to put it, to and beyond just reading people and the psychometry stuff. I've gotten a really good knack at finding cool historic locations. I've got a really good eye for, you know, creating experiences around a space. I've had a lot of, again, what some people would call coincidences or paranormal connections happen. We can get into those later as well.
Hmm.
That I myself can't explain. Sometimes I incorporate that into the shows and I tell people the stories of that. But even when, so yes, I think yes, in my everyday outside of my artistic work, there is a very solid foundation or, you know, gold vein in a sense, I guess, you know, beneath the surface of, again, you know, energy, you know, the paranormal spirits, however you want to call them. I've seen and felt it more like energy. I haven't had a lot of like oh, this spirit at this location definitely came through to me. I more so like, oh, something's here and they're happy. Like it's again, it's a little more
It's more
empathy.
of a feeling.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's more feeling. But and now granted for like again last year for Halloween, in that theater, I did the Orson Welles seance because that was the first stage Orson Welles ever performed on. There were some things in that show I had planned. Like there was a middle. So the first half, I kind of staged it kind of like a Darren show, actually. The first hour or 45 minutes was, my usual mind reading stuff. There was a break. And then I treated the second half, the seance, like its own separate show. I entered from the back, ringing a bell, invoked the history of the building, told some stories, brought people up and had like a bunch of people holding pendulums. And like, that's a perfect example of like, there's not really a trick to that. I'm just finding the right people in the audience, bringing them up, and their pendulums will move. And I can use different people for different things. And as we go along, so I had a structure planned, but there were one or two occurrences that happened. Some people thought one of the chairs on the side of the stage moved. Some people were like, "No, it didn't." I do have it on video; it did move. And like, I don't know if it was a gust of wind, something happened. I have no idea. I'm
Mm.
okay with that's the other thing too. I'm okay with just living in the mystery and not putting, oh, it was definitely this, or it was like when people send like pictures of orbs, they're very like, this is an orb, this is a spirit, right? And they will never hear that it's dust. It's like
And it's mostly dust, yeah,
it's mostly
unfortunately.
dust. And again, I think more and more people are understanding that too. But I think when you see something that is more unexplainable like that, I think I am more one woman. So there's a seat that's apparently named after the ghost of the building, which is named Elvira, and there's a seat dedicated to her. There's a little plaque on the back. And this woman who had never been in the building for one of the ghost tours we did through there, she had dowsing rods. She was walking around. Suddenly they just crossed over that seat. And I was like, do you know what seat you're over? Have you ever been in here? She's like, no, I have no idea. And like, I went over there to make sure she wasn't like, kind of by it. She was right over it. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, like that is, I do my best to invoke that feeling without having to, for lack of a better term, create a trick or fake the experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
you're
give
playing into existing mysteries,
Yes,
essentially.
but
That's
but
cool.
if nothing happens, I try to design so that even if nothing happens for someone, it's still an interesting journey, and it's still it still goes somewhere from a storytelling perspective.
Okay, so I'm going to move off the topics of you being
Okay,
supernatural and giving away all your
sure.
secrets, right? So that'll make you slightly more comfortable. um,
No, it's fine.
good. Have you personally ever seen a ghost or anything like that?
Yes. Well, I saw something.
May you explain the
I
story because
still
I've not.
of course, of course.
Rush.
This there's a big caveat at the end of the story, which I'll get to in a moment. But actually, it's almost exactly 5 years ago this week. I'll tell you why I know that. I don't know if you were watching the news in the spring of 2020 or not, but
Maybe.
there was a lot going on then. Yeah, it was kind of a thing. So my wife's birthday is in early May, so it's coming up at the end of this week. And we were originally planning on going on a trip. Big surprise, that didn't happen. So the previous owner of the Maxwell Mansion, it's new owners now, and I love them, and they're great. And we're doing even more stuff together. The previous owner was great too, but they had to close down. So he's like, "Hey, you guys want to come stay here for a couple nights for her birthday? Get you out of your apartment and everything." And we were like, "Yeah, sure." So we went for like 2 nights, and that sounds amazing. You got this whole house to yourself, everything else. Until at night, you realize you're the only ones in the building. And
Mm.
this is the first time you've been alone. Anyone's been alone in this building in a long time. So the last night I was sitting in the ballroom. The ballroom is also right above where the speakeasy is, and down in the speakeasy, according to legend, is where Dr. Maxwell did some, we'll just say, off the book surgeries after his retirement. Um,
Sounds
So the
amazing.
legend goes. Yeah. So the legend goes. So that's right above it, and right above that is the room we were staying in, which is the Grant, former U.S. President Grant stayed in at one point as well. So that's called the Grant Room. My wife went to bed early the last night. I sat downstairs. He gave us full reign of the bar. So, I'm finishing my drink, reading a book. And again, if you look in this photos of this ballroom, it's surrounded by mirrors and stuff. I finish reading the book, close it. It's a little after midnight. I stand up and look in the mirror, and there was someone standing over my left shoulder, almost kind of like where this phrenology head is right now by looking in the mirror. I turn around to see who it is. No one's there. I turn back and look in the mirror. No one's there. It happened like that quickly and that much in slow motion as it could, Full disclosure, I had made myself 5 old fashions that night. And I don't know how to make an old fashioned. So I leave it up to everyone I tell the story to. If it was the spirits or the spirits, it was one or the other. But that is one of the stranger. That is like the only time I've like full on seen something. I've captured some things on photo. I've seen stuff or heard stuff. I've seen doors, close on their own sometimes in certain locations. I've heard, everyone comes to me with their stories too. So like, I've heard lots of different stories in lots of different places. It's interesting too, because like the old jail I was in, which was cool. I had a friend doing readings in one of the jail cells, but she had to point out, she's like, well, I'm only going to be doing like tarot readings, and because I can't do any spiritual readings because I'm literally in an iron box. And so it's like, oh yeah, like for, spiritual energy and stuff, like iron, repels spirits and all that stuff. So it makes sense why, like, strangely, you don't feel as creepy or as weird in those cells, but you do feel creepier in the more refurbed areas, which is kind of interesting.
The non-iron areas, yeah.
Yeah. So I have found that, little things like that to be interesting too. And I have noticed, like in the theater, I did capture, they had some photos of different people who had performed at the theater. So I was just filming some fun stuff. I was doing like a Charlie type thing. I just took a marker, balanced it on the little ledge, and I was like, goes to the opera house. Are you here? And the marker just fell off at one point. I then tried it again in the haunted seat with a block of wood from the stage. Almost the exact same thing happened, which was really cool. Both of those are on my Instagram at Joe Diamond Live. I think they're on TikTok too. So those are cool. And there are some people who are like, oh, was that a trick? Was that planned? Was that, set up? I mean, I put it there. I, of course, set it up. I was trying it. And maybe I tried it a few times and posted the most active one, or the one where it happened, sooner rather than later. And maybe I took 3 videos in 3 different locations where nothing happened that you all never saw, and we will leave it at that. So
yeah, but you're gonna do that, aren't you? That's called editing.
That's called putting out engaging content these days.
Exactly. Now you're sighting in the mirror, right? Obviously, I see that statuette behind you. Was that person that you saw roughly akin to that size, i.e., that size of head, or was it the person standing?
It was about. It was about that far back. It looked like they were on the other side of the room. Maybe there's windows over there too, so maybe like by the window or outside. Maybe trick of the light. Like it was enough for me to go and then turn around to see who it was. Enough for that. So, but again, like some of that. Also, again, they hadn't been open for 2 months, so some of that alcohol had been sitting a while. So,
and you had some dodgy cheese as well, like Ebenezer Scrooge said. Some moldy potato cheese. Or whatever it said.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Okay, let's get a bit into telepathy itself.
Sure.
Now, I had this written down. I'm going to read my question verbatim because I expected my questions earlier to go a slightly different way. So bear with me.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
So
Okay.
telepathy, is this an innate skill that all humans have, but most have lost the ability along the way, or don't know it's there?
My personal belief currently
Mm-hmm.
is, again, when it comes to like full on telepathy, which is sending and receiving thoughts, is a form of intuition. And I do believe we all have intuition.
Okay.
Like, I do believe we all have intuition. To what degree and for what is a different thing. Christians like to call these things spiritual gifts, like the gifts of tongues or the gifts of prophecy, those kinds of things. It's funny, they won't pick a card, any card, but they will let the guy who lives in a trailer park speak in tongues every Sunday. Who knows?
With a snake. Yeah.
But yeah, with a snake. This is the best metaphor I have come up with for this. And it's a little self-serving because it has to do with gemstones and my last name is Diamond, but I've literally tried to come up with something else, and this is the closest I can get. Whatever label you want to put on it, whether it's intuition, whether it's spiritual gifts, maybe those spiritual gifts are telepathy or empathy or precognition or any of those things, or, energy, psychometry, all that stuff. I think we all have some version of that to some degree. Let's talk about these gifts or, skills, again, however you want to put them. Let's talk about them very briefly as gemstones. Mine, let's just say it is a diamond. My diamond is about the size of my fist, so a little bigger than a baseball. It's gotten pretty bright. It's gotten pretty, it's pretty. I've chipped away all the rock next to it and everything, brought out the inner brightness and polished it and all of that. But you might not have a diamond. You might have an emerald the size of a quarter. So my telepathy diamond may not be initially as bright as your, emerald, quarter-sized emerald for, whatever it may be. Let's just say, for example, that's for someone who can see and speak with spirits, just for example, right now. Well, if they don't nurture it, if they don't work at it, polish it, bring out the brightest version of it, doesn't matter how much or dirty mine is, mine can become brighter and maybe even more valuable if this is not brought out. And also, we shouldn't be jealous. And if we have brought out, our own, for lack of a better term, shine, going to The Shining now, I'm mixing a lot of metaphors into this. But I shouldn't be, if someone's ruby is brighter than mine, no matter how much I polish mine, it's not going to be their ruby. And a perfect example for this for me that has nothing to do with psychic gifts, I could practice the guitar for the same number of hours from now into the rest of my life that Keith Richards has. I will not be as good as Keith Richards. I just won't. I will not be. That's not my gift. I could practice it. I could bring out that aspect of me and maybe do something different with it. But I shouldn't look at Keith Richards and go, oh, well, I'm never going to be that good. But also at the same time, maybe the more natural gem I already have, I could work at, working on that more and bringing out, the gifts I already have. I'm even when I was a young kid, I wasn't much shorter than I am now. I'm 5'7", literally the national average height. And so I'm not short,
Average
I'm not
Joe,
tall,
yeah.
I'm just boom. I'm literally average Joe. Oh yeah, there's another joke about that in my show. And yeah, it didn't take long past my 11th birthday to realize maybe basketball isn't one of my gifts. I love, that was at the time I lived near Chicago. There was Michael Jordan, the Bulls. I watched all the, championship games and all that. I played basketball, but I kind of knew even then, like, yeah, this is fun for me. I can enjoy it, but it's probably not going to be the thing I excel at. And I think so many people know, like deep down, they know what they're supposed to do. They just don't do it. They get too hung up on comparing themselves to someone else. They get too hung up comparing their emeralds and their rubies to other people's diamonds. They should focus on bringing out their own shine.
Their own
and
potential, yeah.
Yeah, that's my... Now, that said, again, just like anyone can learn to play and do basketball, you may, no matter, even if you've never played basketball before, you may land a shot from the 3-point line. You may, there will be moments like that in a sport or in a game, even if you've never played before. And so there are some aspects of, there are aspects in my show where I do bring out I do try some things to see who in the group is most intuitive for the next thing I do. And then use that to kind of build and go forward with that. And that's that's just another fun way to show, this is something that, yes, I'm special, but it's because we're all special. And I don't believe that if everyone's special, no one's special. I truly don't believe that. There's so many more things in the universe, again, like telepathy, like the paranormal, that we can explore together, that we all will be novices on for at least, the span of our lifetimes.
Yeah, fair enough. It's just innate gifts then and bringing out the best in each of us. But in theory, everyone has the ability for telepathy. It's just we'll all be on different levels. And I'm glad you said the thing about transmitting with the radio as well, because that's what I think it is anyway. I think we're sending out information and others pick up on that rather than going into someone's mind and plucking shit out.
Yes. Well, and that's the other thing too. Like, I'll even say, like, it's a conversation. Yeah, you are sending me something, I'm receiving it. And because I've done this a lot, I've learned different ways for like sending and receiving stuff. So
that's interesting.
In fact,
to speak to you about
that. So we can try something right now with you and the listeners of this later on. Who we're obviously recording this now, but for people who watch it later, I've done this in a variety of ways, both live, virtually, and recorded. And it doesn't matter if it's recorded. I've noticed it, for the right person, that does not matter. So let's give this a shot. So, cool. And you and I can try some telepathy in a little bit as well. But for right now, I'm going to think of a memory from my past. I will look right into my camera. I will project it to you and everyone else who views this. And we'll see how many people receive the psychic transmission. Now, we'll compare your answers in a moment. But first, just for the sake of everyone watching, do they listen as well or just watch?
Yeah, there'll be listeners and watching, yeah.
Okay, all right. So if you're listening, obviously, you can't, if you're listening in the car and stuff, you can play along. But if you're able to, maybe sit down in a quiet room and close your eyes for this part. But you can try this at any time as long as you're comfortable. So that said, even for listeners and viewers watching this alone, don't shout your answers out loud. Don't say them out loud. And same thing, Koit, don't say your answers out loud. Sure. And don't think about it too much. Like I've been talking about, go with whatever comes to you naturally. Intuition is knowing without knowing. So for starters, get comfortable in your chair. Take a deep breath. And exhale. Very good. And you're just going to look, for the video, you can look at my palm. That should help. But again, just audio listeners can just focus on something or close their eyes. Take a deep breath. And as you exhale, look right at my palm. And get a number in your mind from 1 to 10. Lock it in your mind. Don't change it. Remember the first number that entered your mind. All right, we'll do it again. Again, I'll keep it simple. Take another deep breath. And as you exhale, get in your mind a direction on a compass. Lock it in your mind. Don't change it. Remember that direction. All right, this last one's going to be the most difficult. This time, you're going to get in your mind 2 simple geometric shapes, one inside the other, like a square inside something else. Obviously, don't pick a square since I just said that. So take a deep breath and exhale. Remember those two shapes. All right, I'm curious to see how you did. And of course, people who are listening to or watching the recording, should they like comment underneath, like on YouTube, or should they send an email? What would
Yeah,
what should
comment
they
on
what should they do?
YouTube. I think you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
raised your
So
hand on this thing, by the way. I need to switch
yeah,
our
I
screens
did.
back.
I did. Yeah, yeah. So,
You
yeah,
can
switch our
undo that.
screens back if we need to. Yeah, go ahead and do that. Here, I'll lower my hand.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. Apologies for that.
That's okay.
It's the ghost in the machine. So, so yeah. So we'll so I'll tell you the memory I was concentrating on. We'll see how
Okay.
accurate you got, and everyone else can let us know how accurate they were. I was thinking of a pretty common memory. I wasn't trying to catch you or anyone else out. I was thinking of my first day of school, and I couldn't find geometry class. So I asked someone where it was, and they said it was on the north side of the building. So if you got north, we'll count that as a hit. When I got to the classroom, I counted and noticed there were 7 students. And when I looked at the chalkboard, the teacher had drawn a circle and a triangle. Now, did you get any of those?
Personally, no.
No, okay, that's okay. That's fine. That's totally okay. Now here's the thing. I think some people watching and listening will get this. Again, some people are better at this than others. Now, here's the other thing too. That's kind of interesting with this is typically, so if people don't get this, they're usually better at sending thoughts than receiving, I've noticed as well. And they're good at generating thoughts. Like when I ask for like a simple shape, these are the types of people who go with like a star inside of a dodecahedron or something like that, you know? So out of curiosity, what were your answers?
Northwest.
Northwest. Okay. So,
So you were
okay,
close.
that's half.
I went 9.
Okay.
Northwest 9. What was the other question? Shapes. Wasn't it?
Yeah. The shapes were a circle and a triangle.
Well, this proves me to be a sender then. A triangle within an octagon.
Okay, all right. So you got one of the two shapes, and you got all right. So 2 halves of 1. That makes 1 out of 3. We'll round up.
We'll take that.
That's 33% is well above. What were the Rhine tests? If it was over 21%, it was statistically significant. That's why so many of them you look at, you're like, wow, 30-40%. That's as high as people got. And when you really look at the data, you're like, oh no, that's actually quite significant. I have my own feeling about scientific testing for this type of stuff because, again, what I do is an art, not a science. That said, I have friends who are in the psychology community, and I actually am working on some psychology experiments with a friend of mine who has his doctorate in psychology. That have to do with AI. That's as much as I'm allowed to say about it right now, which is kind of cool. But you said you were good at. So yeah, I think you'd be good at sending for this. So let's try something just you and me. Okay. So do you have like a pen and paper handy?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. So and this will kind of tie in a little bit to these to your listenership and some of your previous guests as well. I've become fascinated with the idea of parallel universes. Obviously, movies that involve the multiverse are really popular right now, but I mean, like the idea that somewhere out in the universe, or maybe just on the other side of ours, there's another me or another you. And people have all sorts of things, like, again, everything everywhere all at once. There's the hot dog finger universe, there's the rock universe and everything. I love this very simple yet mind-boggling idea of a parallel universe. And that's where everything is the same as ours, but opposite. So, for example, you and I would be talking right now, but maybe we're talking on my podcast and you are the guest. Maybe I'm in the UK and you're in the US. Maybe in this opposite world, when you do laundry there, you gain a sock, rather than lose one. In the my favorite thing that I've thought about for this opposite world, this opposite universe, when you get to the crosswalk and push that button in that universe, that actually does something. So that means we've always been just, we've been just close, but just out of step with this alternate universe or this alternate version of you. So we're going to do something to kind of sync both universes up. And we're going to do this very simply. In a moment, for the audio listeners, the pen and paper out of frame, there's no way I can see it. Can't even see if your pen's moving. I want you to write down a 3-digit number in a moment. Now, there's just a couple minor rules. Number one, make all 3 digits different. Don't do like 1111. That was more than 3, but you know what I mean. And also, just to make it easier for in a moment, don't do any zeros. You'll see why in a moment. But just do a 3-digit number on your paper for right now.
Okay? No worries. I'm going to do it in a Sharpie as well. So if I have to present it, it'll be seen.
Perfect. Disguise it a little bit too, because Sharpie you can sometimes hear. So I don't want people to think I can hear it or anything as well. So just keep that in mind as well as we do that.
No
that's genuinely not what I'm doing. But again, for anyone watching. Okay, so you've done that. Oh, keep the Sharpie handy. You're going to need to do some more in a moment. Okay. Now, you just wrote down. Now, let me just say, obviously, this is very unlikely. But let's just say you wrote down the digits 1, 2, 3. Let's just say for a moment, okay? That would mean the opposite version of you just wrote down 3, 2, 1, right?
In theory, yes.
That person, in theory. So do that for me. On that same piece of paper, reverse the numbers. If you wrote down 1, 2, 3, write down 3, 2, 1. All right? So you'll have 2 3-digit numbers. Go ahead and do that. And again, you can, I'll talk while you do it as well. So perfect. Yeah. So even people listening, they won't know.
There was a duck in here. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got 2 3-digit numbers, reverse. Now think about this. This is probably the very first time you and that doppelganger of yours have ever been in sync. Because when they wrote the opposite, they wrote the other. Right? So this is probably the first time both of you have the same thing literally right in front of you. Now, you've got 2 numbers in front of you. Would you add those or subtract them?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to do it? Or just pick a subtraction? Or
Yeah. Which would you do in a moment?
More likely to add.
More likely to add, which means, so now we've branched off again, because the opposite one of you would subtract. I want you to do not what you would do, but again, just like before, what your doppelganger would do. So obviously one number will be bigger than the other. So put the smaller number underneath the bigger number and subtract it from the bigger number. Again, don't tell me what the number is, what the final number is.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. So make some noise so I don't know, what you're doing. So I mean, technically, if you
have to write down the answer again on this piece.
Yeah, write down the answer. So technically you could do it the other way, but you'd end up with a negative. But then the opposite version of you would end up with a positive and all that. So it gets confusing.
Okay, so let me work this out.
Yeah, double check. And if you have a calculator on your phone nearby, you can double check.
I can do this. I'm
math as well.
I'm decent at maths, but I'm still going to do it on the calculator, right?
Yep, that is fine. That is absolutely fine. See, the opposite version of you wouldn't have used the calculator, and we would have been out of sync. So you've got a brand new total that even you didn't know you were going to end up with, right? Okay, yes. So that should have been enough to get in sync. This final number, did you end up with a 3-digit again or a 2-digit number?
A 3.
A 3-digit number. Okay. Focus on just the first digit of that 3-digit number. All right. And all I'm going to ask you to do is think of that first number and just do me a favor and count from 1 to 9 out loud. Okay. Ready when you are.
Ready. Okay. Now.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay. Some people think I listen for a tone or something in your voice. I'm actually doing something a little more sneaky. I now know something not only about the first number, but technically all the numbers. None of these 3 digits are 0, correct?
Yeah, because you told me
Because
not
I
to
didn't.
use. Yeah.
Because yes, if there was a zero, you would have been a little questioning at the end, maybe even added in the zero out of guilt. You didn't do that. You stayed calm and collected. So that's how I knew none of these are zero. So again, just another little thing for this. Focus again just on the first digit. I'm going to go for this without you counting again. Look at the second digit and look at the third digit. I think that was the first digit's 2.
Unfortunately, not.
But there is a 2 in it though, yes?
No.
Really? Oh, I might be way off on this. What is the first digit? 5. Okay. That's interesting. Because I was getting 294. Is it 594?
Yeah.
It is. All right. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. All right. We got there. Perfect. So that's a perfect way to kind of show how we do this with numbers. Now that we're in sync, let's do something that's a little more has a little bit more emotional value here. I'm going to grab a pen and a piece of paper here. I want you to think of your first just think of the initials of the first person you can remember having a crush on.
Oh God.
Now here's the thing. It doesn't have to be the exact first one.
What if my memory is shite, which it is?
Okay. No, that's okay. It can even be a celebrity, if that makes it.
Let's go with that then. Let's go.
Okay, all right, but don't even. Okay, it can be a celebrity. I'm going to give you a few more seconds to maybe change your mind if you want, if you do think of something else, because I don't want someone to think, oh, well, age-wise, you could probably narrow down the celebrity and all that. And the only thing I'll ask, just to make sure as I write this down, do you have, do you just go by, Koit, like one word, like Prince, or do you have a second initial?
It's K. That's where my nickname comes from, is from my surname.
Oh, it is from your surname. Okay, all right. Yeah. So I'll tell you what. I'll just do. What would you pick for your initials then?
PK.
So PK.
For me
okay.
Personally, yeah.
Yes, for you personally. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, and all right. So just think of. I'm going to finish writing this. So think of the initials again. Don't tell me if you swapped to an actual person or if it's still a celebrity. Don't react. But this is also going to be strange. Look right at your camera, not at your screen. Look right at your camera. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Can I do this opposite as well? Z, Y, X, W, V, U, T, S, R, Q, P, O, N, M, L, K, J, I, H, G, F, E, D, C, B, A. Okay. I think that was a little harder because part of you was thinking, oh, wow, he actually can do that backwards. These are both different these are both different initials, yes?
Correct.
And I do believe both are consonants, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to go with, let's see if I can do this 100%. Sorry if I'm off on one or get the initials out of order or something like that. I'm going to leave this. I'll leave this in frame, so I'm not adding it underneath. You can tell us now what were the initials?
KM.
You lagged for a little bit.
K for Koit, M for mother.
Okay, interesting. So KM.
Yes.
I apologize for my handwriting on all of this, of course. Your K is obviously better, but I did write down PK plus KM for your little love heart there. So
there you
got that. So now that was again, letters are 1 in 26. I think we're fully locked in. Let's take this one step further. Think of a playing card in a deck of cards, not the ace of spades, not the queen of hearts. Let's go with, I'm going to turn one card upside down in here.
Okay, I got one in my mind.
Okay, I've got one card turned upside down. Obviously, the Joker's not in here. Same thing. I'll keep it in frame. All the cards are in the box. I'll show that. So, I don't have them all spread out on my counter or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So one card in here is reversed. So you've got one card in mind, yes?
Yes.
Now, I think you'd agree, if the card you were thinking of matched the one reversed in here, that'd be pretty good, right?
I
That'd be
would
a pretty
say,
good
yes.
way to end this.
Yeah.
Again, look right at your camera. Look at, think of your card. Okay, I'm getting the sense the card you're thinking of does not match the card in here. So that's
Okay.
it. Thank you so much. And no, I'm kidding. That's not the end. That's not the end. Here's the thing, though. I actually think you're close. So you know how there's 4 suits: clubs, diamonds, spades, and hearts. I think you got the color right. Just the suit is wrong. So keep the color, but swap to the other suit in your mind for me, okay?
Of what? Any suit?
Of your card. Of your card. Yeah. So if you picked a spade, switch to a club. If you thought of a heart, switch to a diamond, or vice versa. Don't tell me which you
stay with it and stay within the color.
Stay within the color. Yeah.
Got it.
Don't say which it is yet, because again, I don't want people watching this thinking that's giving me information.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure if I've done this right, you won't have to tell me what you just did. Same thing with the value. You're not spot on, but you're very close. I think you're only off by 1. Do you think you need to add a value or subtract a value? Do you think you need to go up 1 or down 1?
Let's go up.
I believe you're right. So go up 1 value and change the suit. So now you have a brand new card. Forget the original card you thought of. This new card you just created should match the card I turned over in here. Tell us what this new card is.
It will be a 7 of hearts.
7 of hearts. Okay, I'll go through this deck very slowly. Let me know if you see the reverse card before I do. You will see all the cards really are facing the same way, except for one near the middle. That is the only card I reversed, yes. You can see all the other cards, including the card I think you started with, the 6 of diamonds, but I had you change your mind, and we ended up with the 7 of hearts. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So there we go. So that gives you a couple ideas of like some of the psychology and such. Again, in person, I can go a little bit more intuitive, and I'll take some bigger risks and go from there. But that's just kind of a little snippet of the kind of thing I do.
I have a question for you then, right? On that
Sure.
last one.
Sure.
I didn't pick that initial card that you mentioned.
Interesting. Was it close?
It was a 6 of clubs.
Oh, interesting. Okay, interesting.
But it was still interesting that you still picked out a 6. Because
yes,
I could have said 3.
So from the 7. Sure, of course. So again, even the other thing I'll say too, and now that you've experienced this doesn't sound as much of a cop-out. I only say this in shows. I say, I'm not 100%, but when I'm wrong, it does make sense very often why I said what I said. Like just one of the things, for example, when someone was thinking of a friend, and I was like, I'm getting the sense this is your mom, because I was just getting a motherly vibe. She was like, no, but she did just have her first kid. So she just recently became a mother. So, So again, like it's about finding the connections and so on. So, hopefully we get more connections than just random chance, of course. And I think we did pretty well here, but of course, and in the context of the other great thing with doing like the test where everyone reads my mind that we did, I love doing that on these things. So I love seeing how, getting messages after to see how people, how many people got it. But what's great doing that in live shows is you see all the people like reacting, how many people got one, the other, both. And it is interesting. And the other line I say in the show is, now you'll know what it feels like, how I feel when I get it right and when I get it wrong. So you'll know how I feel.
I
so
appreciate feedback.
You
need that.
Of course. I get it. Of course. Yeah.
I've never been too much of a feedback person, because I've always been quite stoic. So I'm not. Maybe I'm a hard person to read anyway. I don't know. I don't get it.
There's it's not that you don't get it. I think just some people are very I think stoic is the right word, especially when you look into like stoicism and everything else. Yeah, it's not that they're, and that's the other thing too, when people say like, oh, he's a skeptic, like very often that person isn't a skeptic. Again, they're just being cynical, or I mean, there's plenty of things they've believed carte blanche without any evidence, in their lives. They're not a true leader of a skeptic movement or anything. So it's and again, like I don't it's only like the absolute hardened ones where I've got to look at their friends and go, so how bad is it? When you go to the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, is he the one leaning over you going, I don't think this Johnny Depp guy is really a pirate? like, I think there's something else going on there besides skepticism for those people, and we'll just
Yeah,
leave
yeah,
it
yeah.
at that. So,
They're desperate to be
yeah,
miserable. And what does your wife
sure.
think about all this? Have you told her all the ins
Oh,
and outs of all the tricks and the
so,
mind reading and everything, or not?
yeah, a little bit. It's funny because she's collaborated on some shows. So one of my shows I did was called Mystic. It's kind of where I kind of also got the it started being called a mystic because it wasn't meant to be like I'm a mystic. I actually talked about different mystics from throughout history, like Edgar
Nice.
Casey,
Oh yeah, nice.
and uh, Pamela Coleman Smith, who designed the Rider Waite Smith Tarot deck, and so all these. And she's a history science double major, so she helped me with not only the research for the history, but also when you're researching someone, just for example, Pamela Colton Smith, who was a phenomenal artist and incredible human being. Like, forget the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world. She was the most interesting human of the last 200 years, in my personal belief. There's lots of great books about her now. Yeah, she did everything from miniature theater. She designed the programs for the first play run of Dracula in London's West End. Like, just all sorts of wonderful. Got hooked up with the Order of the Golden Dawn, converted to Catholicism in later years. And when you look at the tarot cards, you see all those, interesting. There's the Pope's on the death card. Irony for this, recently. But yeah, so and it's really hard to pick out what I find interesting and what the general person finds interesting. So she's really good at like, yeah, no one cares about that. Just say this and move on to that point. Or oh, I didn't really get what you were going for with that. So from the artistic side, she definitely helps out. When she's at shows, I'll just tell you exactly what she says. When uh people come up to her, um when they find out she's my wife and they find out, she's married to the mind reader, they're like, oh my gosh, does he ever read your mind at home? And she just goes, not if he knows what's good for him.
Exactly.
So,
I've got a plate with his
uh,
name on it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, of course, there's the standard couple of like, is that what you are really thinking? And no, maybe, but I don't think any more than the average couple. I mean, the best way to kind of describe it is like, you know, a painter usually isn't painting when they're spending time with their partner. Um, they're someone who's a professional writer usually isn't writing. She works. She now. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. That's her background, and she works as a finance analyst. So she is definitely smarter than me. Let me be clear about that by a long shot. Um, but uh, but like, yeah, she's not balancing my checkbook off work the same way I'm not reading her mind off work, if that makes
Yeah, yeah,
sense.
no, that
We're
makes sense. You've
just
got to have downtime. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So and yeah, but when people ask her that, she just says that and they laugh, and it's there's as with all humor, there's a layer of truth about that. So we'll leave it at that.
Before we jump into the Koit zone, which is we get into
Sure,
more comedy side of things,
sure.
I want to ask you of two things. Were you destined, do you think, in your life to do what you're doing today? Or was there a different path for you?
I don't know if it was destined, but my one of my mentors was a gentleman by the name of Eugene Berger who worked for years in the he actually was a big inspiration for Darren Brown. Actually, Darren's written about him in several of his books, and he did teaching. He taught religion. He did welfare work. He did all this stuff, and he said he still, despite doing all that, he still felt called to be a magician. And he would do magic, but like he would weave in stories of like philosophy, and like he would burn a piece of thread in a candle while talking about Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva and the Hindu gods and the creation and destruction and the recreation of the universe in fire. And it was beautiful. It was like poetry. And he often talked about it being like ministers feeling being called to be in the ministry, and I do and not just in a rabbit out of a hat or even entertainment. You know, psychological illusionist, mentalist degree. I do believe I was called to be a magician in every sense of the word. I do study. This is insanely private to me right now, but I alluded to it earlier. But yeah, I do study symbolism and shadow work and energy and you know some ritual. I've really gotten into like ritual activation and so forth lately. I find it endlessly fascinating. I've been I got Alan Moore's new bumper book on magic and alchemy and such, so that's been like my latest deep dive. So that's been warping my brain lately. Who needs drugs when you've got Alan Moore, right? But yeah, I do feel, I don't know about destiny, predetermination, free will, all that, but I do feel I feel most comfortable saying that I was called to do this. Yeah.
Cool. And I kind of asked that question to everyone because I wonder if we're always going to end up in the position we're in. And I know that sounds silly because we're in the position we are now. We can't really think of anything else. But I just wonder
Sure.
if we're always meant to be where we are right now. It's a weird thing.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question before we move into the Koit zone, which is to say the Penn and Teller work you did.
Yeah.
You were on the
Yeah.
Penn and Teller show. They worked out how you did that trick or how
So
you
there's an
came to
yeah,
that thing.
there is an interesting story behind all that, which I can get into. But ask your question. Like, what do you?
It will be similar to what you probably think I'm going to
Sure.
ask anyway. Is after the show, because obviously they don't tell you on the show, right?
Hmm.
It's because you did this, 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 and this. After the show, did they come to you and say, right, this is how you did it, and then you have to confirm or
Uh,
deny?
yeah. I'll peel back the production side of that a little bit. So here, without getting too much into the ickiness of show business in general, I'm not a big fan of the Got Talent shows. I have friends who have done them, and I have friends who have done really well on them. But that's not my cup of tea, and not what I'd be looking for. I Long story short, no matter how the Penn and Teller show goes, it pays more than AGT, and you'll have footage. You'll have footage at the
Yeah,
end of the
yeah, good
day,
point.
and people fly out on their own dime, spend days in a theater, and they end up in 3 seconds of a montage, and that's happened to a few friends of mine. I think they really, I think they're great. Now that said, they do not like psychics. They don't even like, traditional mentalism usually. Um, so getting on that show was a I sent them everything I had. I sent them clips from my shows. I sent them stuff I had invented. And so I originally pitched that with tarot cards. Because I thought, oh, that'll be really fun to like go to the Las Vegas diehard James Randi disciple skeptics with tarot cards. Like even if they recognize it, I do think they would have been less likely to recognize what I was doing. Um, if it was tarot cards, I think I had an advantage there. But then the producers one day were just like, you know what? We'd rather if you did this with playing cards, which I was shocked by because everyone always says like, oh, it's impossible to get on doing anything with cards on that show. They always ask for no card tricks, no. You will see people do stuff with literally anything, pay stubs, tickets, photos, rather than 9 times out of 10 that was created as a card trick and they reformatted it, which is similar to what I was doing with the tarot card, so it was fine. So now, like a month before filming, I had to completely rewrite the script. And one other funny thing about that, because it leads into answering your question too. We filmed that in the summer of 2023, and I knew I was going to be on the show like at the end of May again, same thing around this time. So I had to keep it secret for several months before filming and then several months after filming. But during that time, the writer's strike happened, and I was working on the script for my piece because they were still in production because technically it's an unscripted reality show. even though I'm doing a written performance
Sure. Yeah.
piece on TV. I'm not writing something for TV, so it went under the radar. And I heard through the grapevine, like I was the only one who was like submitting script revisions each time I like updated it and stuff. Everyone else, because no one else scripts their stuff, and I intensely script my stuff. So I like to say, give myself the honor of being the only writer working in TV in the summer of 2023. So I'll give myself that without being a scab, because I'm not a union member yet. So there was that, and during the filming, Penn and Teller, they were super sweet. It was also the end of the day. They had already given away 2 trophies. I didn't appear in the same episode that with the people I filmed. So like they had already given away 2 trophies. They definitely weren't going to give. I was the last one to go on. And they were tired, and it was going to be cards, and the audience, they had seen Penn and Teller perform, all these great acts perform, and out here comes Mr. Midwest Mind Reader with just a deck of cards and a story about, his religious upbringing. And what ended up happening was performance is going great, and we had to stop midway through and start over due to technical issues.
Oh, God.
So Penn and Teller did get a second look at what was important and what wasn't. And in my head, I was like, oh, they 100% are going to know this now. And of course, spoiler alert for people who haven't watched it, I psychically predicted at the end that I predict I will not fool Penn and Teller, which, and that was at the suggestion of a friend of mine who had done the show, like, walk off as if that's the trophy. Have a walk-off gag. Don't just like walk off. Like that's the moment, make every moment you're out there count. So I was like, okay, they definitely are going. And I even had a reference in my script to where it was originally published and who initially created it. So I knew that they would know, and finally the producers know. There's a consultant, and the producers know all the ins and outs, and they're in Penn and Teller's ear, and they're actually the ones telling them, thumbs up, you got it, or thumbs down, you didn't. And we were actually cued how to answer Penn and Teller. If they say we think we snuck some stuff in there, they've even if you missed it, say, yeah, I think you know it, because that means they know it. But if they tell you something that you can say a clear yes or no to, that's how they're setting it up for, oh, okay, no, well, then you fooled us. So then it appears more, it's not quite going to the judges as much, which they have had to do a couple times. So you don't get to decide if you had fooled Penn and Teller, of course. You don't get to decide if you won the game show. So there's that aspect as well. The other thing too, that's you'll see this with everyone on that show. You can't hear Penn talking when he's talking to you. He's facing this way. All the speakers and the theater is built to send sound this way. So you're not, and they have earpieces, Brooke has an earpiece, you're just hearing Penn. So when you see people going like, they're not like mad that they haven't figured it out, that you can't hear Penn. So in the full unedited reality of what happened, he says, so I think I don't think you fooled us. Brooke asks me, and I go, I think so. You mentioned something. I say something completely unrelated to what he was actually trying to say. And then he clarified the thing he said. And this is where the TV thing comes into, where I say, oh, so the Schwartz was with you. Because the person who created one of the techniques I was using was named Sam Schwartz. And you don't see it on TV because the camera's on me at the time. Teller howled laughing when I said that. Like, ah! So, like, yeah, I knew that they knew, like, yeah, it was fine. What I was most concerned about was Brooke is into like the mystical and paranormal and has been on Hollywood Medium and everything, the host of the show, Brooke Berg. So when she asked me to read her palm, like, I'm like, okay, I'm in front of the two biggest skeptics on the planet when it comes to this stuff. I'm in their house, on their stage, on their TV show. Um, and I'm about to read her palm. Another thing they cut out, I made a bunch of jokes. There's one of them that stayed in, but I made so many different jokes. I was like, maybe we're soulmates. Our shoe sizes might be the same. What shoe size are you? Get it? Soulmates. You know, all that. Just to like, hey, Penn and Teller, I don't take this too seriously. I'm not, and she ended up hugging me. And after that, I purposely made sure all my answers after that were really boring answers because in my head, I was just like, I don't need a trophy. Like, couple dozen people on the planet have those trophies. Very few people have held Brooke Burke in their arms. So send me home now, please.
You've already got your win, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So they aired that. That helped. I'll say one more. I'll let in one more little interesting thing about it. The video they saw is actually me, the producers that they selected. It's actually a video of me on my one friend's YouTube channel teaching it to him because he didn't know it, even though the book it's in was on his shelf. So the whole gag of that was, hey, I'm going to go on this magician's YouTube channel and fool him with something that's in a book on his shelf.
With his own trick that he doesn't know, so to speak.
Yeah. The explanation is nearly 20 minutes long. It's not, in my mind, I don't see it as complicated, but it is dense. There's a lot going on. And I've had multiple people before it aired and after say, oh, I tried watching it, but I lost track. And I just, so like, and there wasn't that pressure either going on because people do like to do expose videos online. I had already had mine. Like that was already up. So it was like, okay, so the task isn't to go on and, fool Penn and Teller. The task is to go on and be the best version of me on television. And Penn even said this was his favorite kind of mentalism because it does take a genuine amount of mental effort and thinking, which if you know the routine, it does. And for them to say that and that it's the kind of mentalism they like when on their masterclass, their whole section on mentalism in their masterclass course is basically just about how much they hate mentalism. They teach one trick, kinda, and it's just Penn ranting about how they do not like psychics and do not like mentalism. So for someone who has their whole show on Showtime bullshit, they did multiple episodes on psychics and mind reading and telepathy and all that. They were very funny. I didn't agree with everything on them, of course, but I still find them hilarious. I still love their work artistically. And for them to say that to me is like more important. So yeah. So
there you go. You got 2 wins out of it then.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Do you know a chap called Andy Gladwin? He's a mate of mine.
I do know Andy. Do you know Andy?
Yeah, he comes from Gloucester where I live. He's a mate of mine.
Oh,
I've known
awesome.
him for years. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
He's been on Penn and Teller as well. I was just
yes. Yeah. He runs a magic convention in the UK as well as one in the States. The one in the States is Magi Fest, and I helped with their youth program for a few years before the pandemic, like 2018, 19, and 20, I believe. So yeah, Andy and I know each other pretty well. We're not like, I'd say we're mates. We've chatted when he's hosted stuff online too, and he always introduces me as all right. We're going to talk to everyone's favorite happy person, Joe Diamond. Yeah,
that's a good moniker to have.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Andy is an absolute sweetheart. So yeah, Andy's. So yeah, I've actually hung out with Andy, spent time with him, and worked with him and stuff. Okay, cool. All right.
Let's enter the Koit zone, and then we'll wrap this up, my good friend.
Right, perfect.
So we are now entering the Koit zone. Koit zone. What is the best tasting food item ever?
My mother-in-law's homemade pizza.
Oh, aye. What's so good about that?
She makes the dough. She does pesto. It's also great cold. Like being in the Midwest, Chicago, there's everyone's a pizza snob, but like I could name a chain, I could name a restaurant. Yes, I've got my local and international favorites, but just something about that, like, just is amazing. So
High
yep,
end, we call it.
yep.
Me and Tiff
And
call it
and
high end.
and my wife and I have used her recipe and made the pizza here as well. So
Excellent.
without her, so when she makes it and when we make it, it's the best.
High end. Star Trek or Star Wars for you?
There's so many clarifiers I want to ask. I am gonna say Star Wars, even though I think I like Star Trek more. Like we like the Next Generation series, and I think there's, for lack of a better term, hour for hour more higher end content for Star Trek rather than Star Wars. That said, can't argue with episodes 4, 5, and 6, and going to Disney and seeing the Millennium Falcon in person and going on Rise of the Resistance. Like it is weird like being in Star Wars land at Disney, and like suddenly there's Mando walking through, like literally the market crowd parted while Mando walks around with Baby Yoda in his pouch, looking up and blinking at you. Like, and like when the stormtroopers come up, you're like, oh crud, it's the space Gestapo. Okay, be cool, be cool. Like you feel, as much as you're in Disney, you still feel like so immersed, and I argue Rise of the Resistance is the best thing Star Wars has put out besides the original trilogy. I'll just say that. I don't
I've
want to
not
get in
been there,
arguments
so I'll
over
take your word for it. Yeah, yeah.
that's fair. I mean, you're part of the story. Like, I mean, how can you not freak out when, you're being saved by, rebels who are cutting through the jail cell you're in and opening the door, and you have to run out and get into the escape pod. Like,
Yeah,
it's
quality.
amazing. It's super amazing. So because of that, and I'm going back in a few weeks, my wife and I, because of that immersive experience, I will say Star Wars. But if you told me I had to watch something Star Wars or Star Trek right now, I would probably say Star Trek. So,
Excellent. And I would back and forth myself because it's a hard question. If you had to
sure.
choose a Star Trek series, which one are you going for?
Oh, Next Generation. That was the first one I watched growing up. Picard was my first captain. I actually learned about the original series and Kirk from the Generations movie. I was like 9 or 10 when it came
Ah, there
out,
you go.
and as dated that movie is, and how it maybe didn't even hold up at the time, maybe. Um, as a kid, I really enjoyed that movie, and I loved. My wife and I loved the Next Generation series, and I've watched Voyager, I've watched Deep Space Nine, I've watched the original series and the movies and stuff, uh, but yeah, but those that would probably be. I haven't watched a lot of the new Trek.
No, we
It's not
ignore
my.
that. That doesn't exist.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
It's funny how people are like, "Oh, I don't like Star Trek." But I like the new series. It's like, well, then you don't like Star Trek.
Exactly that.
Like,
That is the
it's
phrase.
it's nothing like. I like it as long as it's nothing like what it originally was. It's like,
Exactly. It's a sci-fi series
okay.
of its own, and we'll just gloss over that one.
And I try not to. I used to be very critical of people who liked things like Twilight, or the prequels and stuff like that. But basically bad art. But it's like, I like I own Queen of the Damned on Blu-ray and unironically listen to the soundtrack. We all have our own guilty pleasure tastes.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
let people enjoy it, but don't call new Star Trek, and we'll leave it
Correct.
at that. So,
What is the last item, Joe, that you sold on Facebook Marketplace?
oh, I think it was a book that wasn't really that good. So I sold it. I don't use Facebook Market. It's been a long time since I've used Facebook Marketplace. So I usually just pawn them off on friends now if I need to get rid of
But
like
that's okay. It
books
was a
or
book
maybe other
nonetheless.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay, what music are you currently listening to?
Ooh, let me pull this up because I'm gonna butcher the name. Um, okay, so there's two. Uh, One is there. It's a father daughter German duo. I just found them like this weekend. Uh, I think it's pronounced Marie Celestine and Michael. They have a Christmas album, which is amazing. He does like deep throat singing, and she sings. Their cover of "My Immortal" by Evanescence just went super viral, and I hope they release it soon. They also did one from uh, they also did Linkin Park's Numb, which was great. But like even like the Christmas songs are great. And then there's a new African American punk band called The Paradox that I found on social media who are great. But literally, the last two full albums I downloaded were the Honey I Shrunk the Kids soundtrack
Soundtrack.
and The Rocketeer.
Nice. Good choice of movies. I both
Yeah.
of those. Um,
Yep.
what animal or insects gives you the shits, the creeps?
Indiana Jones, snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Yeah.
As a kid at the preserve and stuff, I would hold a snake every once in a while. I've caught garter snakes with my cousins and stuff. But I was like 10. I was at Split Rock in Colorado, Wyoming. I can't remember which state. With my dad, and my dad and uncle showed if you break off a bit of this branch and smell it, it smells like sweet pine. I'm going around, and I bent over, and a diamondback just into that bush. Yeah, so, and I freaked out, and my dad thought I was playing until he saw the last end of the tail go in. The fact that I've gone near any snakes since then, I consider a massive win, and I don't need to do it again.
No, fair
I'll just
play.
leave it at that.
There's always something for each of us. Um,
Yeah.
have you ever seen the night sky properly, i.e., a complete dark sky where you get to see all the stars?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. I've
Northern.
not
My
yet
my
had that
family is
true experience.
Yeah, my family has been has some property up in northern Wisconsin, and we've been up there. We've seen a little bit of the northern lights, and out in Colorado and all that. It's just like, yeah, endless stars
Oh,
through the night
amazing.
sky where you can see the Milky Way and everything. Yeah,
It's
it's
a sad
wonderful.
state of affairs now that a lot of humans don't get to see what we all should have access to, just because we live
Hmm.
under lights. But hey, that is what it is.
Hmm.
Which actor is playing you in the story of your life? Are you saying James Corden? Or not? You don't really want him, do you?
I don't. I mean, the resemblance is uncanny. I gotta, as much as I may not love the man as a soul slash personality recently because of a lot of different reasons. Of course, like I will admit, the similar. Actually, my other friend, he does more traditional magic, and when we do shows together, we introduce ourselves as escapees 215 and 216 from the James Corden cloning facility. We just stand there next to each other. Because yeah, the Venn diagram of us is him. Uh, I Okay, so I mean, honest, like if we're gonna do like the honest portrayal, yes. That said, I'm going to go by Houdini rules, which is all the actors who have ever played Harry Houdini have all been way too good looking. Even Adrian Brody, and also that movie was probably the most inaccurate historically
They often
Houdini
always
movie
are.
ever. I don't think there's a single accurate one,
Hmm.
but I think both the Tony Curtis one and the most recent one with Adrian Brody, I think Houdini would have loved, and we'll just leave it at that. So if we're gonna go those rules where it's like, oh my gosh, someone who's actually like cool and good looking could play you. I'm gonna go with. He'll have to get a little older and maybe color his hair, and it's Gayton, I think is his first name. The actor who plays what's his name? I just had his name on the tip of my tongue. Uh, from Stranger Things, not Finn Wolfhard.
Oh, I know the one
Um,
you mean. Dustin.
Dustin. Yeah, Dustin. Yeah, the actor who plays Dustin in Stranger Things. I could see him growing up and like my hair looks a lot darker on camera, but it is a lot more dirty blonde. But I think I think there could be an interesting thing there. Maybe even Finn Wolfhard if we're going to be really great. More and more Leonardo DiCaprio looks like me. I don't look like him. More and more he's looking more and more like a cross between me and Jack Nicholson as he gets older. So it's like he looks more like Jack Nicholson's son than Jack Nicholson's son. I saw an ad for the new trailer he's doing, and it's like, oh my God, like, is he purposely looking this bad, or is this just how he looks now? Like, I don't know.
It's called aging. I'm afraid it gets.
No, that's fair. That's fair. The line I often say when people, very, very briefly, people often say like, "Oh, how old are you?" And that's the other thing. I kind of like having that. It's a bit of a mystery, but because I'm a lot older than I look. And I always say I look great for my 40s and terrible for my 20s, and we'll leave it at that. I'm like Brendan Fraser. It's not so much I'm going to look older; I'm just going to look worse. So
it gets us all, mate.
And nothing against Brendan Fraser. I love Brendan Fraser, and I think he's aging gracefully, like an actual human and everything. We can't all be John Stamos or Rob Lowe. Those are blips on the radar. That's fine, but that's. I guess that's the. I mean, again, like I'm mostly terrified of like if I do pick someone, then they become problematic later on. So it's like
you ain't gonna think like that. I just think Sodom. Let's just go on their looks, and you've
Like for example, 18 months ago, I probably would have asked for Neil Gaiman to write the script, and not anymore.
Oh yeah, you can't do that now. Apparently,
yeah.
That's why I said to you earlier. I don't subscribe to any of that cancelling malarkey. What is
sure, yeah. So
right, last question in the Koit zone. You find a portal to another dimension, and you have no idea what's on the other side of that portal. Are you stepping through?
Okay, this is the one I am going to ask a clarifying question, and it's okay if... Is there something on the other side of that portal? Like, is it nothing, or like, is there a chance for the other side of that portal to be just absolutely nothing, cease to exist, basically? Or is it a portal to somewhere?
In theory, I should let you decide what you think there should be, but I'm going to help you out and clarify there's nothing that will kill you there. So you are stepping into another world, right? So
down, 1,000% down, 1,000% down. I would maybe, I don't believe in animal testing, but maybe get like, a mean shit dog to go in there first, and
shit dog.
pull it out on its leash, outward, and if he comes back, great, and if not, maybe I don't feel like I need to go save it.
That's it. If half a dog comes sliding back, it's
or inside out or something. It's like, something where it's like you'll be sad, but it won't be a tragedy. It's
we shall give that a miss. Right, that is the end of our time in the Koit zone, and that also brings us to the end of this time for the interview. So, Joe, thank you ever so much for your time and your candid answers. Thank you ever so much. And I would say to anyone listening or watching, check out the links in the description to Joe's site where you can get tickets to see his performances and look at all his existing content, should I say, and check out his Instagram where you can keep up to date with his latest activities. Joe, is there anything else you wish to add to that?
At Joe Diamond Live on all platforms, and JoeDiamondLive.com. Yeah.
Perfecto. Thank you ever so much, Joe. It's much appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Koit.
Goodbye, everyone. See you on the next one. To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.